At night, the city never slept. Cars honked, screens glowed, voices echoed everywhere. Everyone said noise was just a normal part of life. Everyone except for a boy named Eli, because Eli, he could hear something else. Something hidden behind all that noise. He could hear the city whispering. It wasn't something you could hear with just your ears. It was a feeling, a deep hum that resonated in his bones. The tiny cracks in the streets sighed with exhaustion. The old, forgotten buildings groaned under the weight of time. The streetlights flickered like tired eyes, struggling to stay open just a little longer. To everyone else, these were just random city sounds. But to Eli, they were words. The city was speaking to him, sharing its secrets, its history, its pain. He would walk through the bustling streets, a silent observer in a world of constant clamor. While people rushed past, buried in their phones and their own thoughts, Eli would stop and listen. He heard the faint memory of footsteps from 100 years ago, imprinted on the cobblestone alleys. He heard the joyful echoes of children's laughter absorbed by the bricks of an old playground wall. He even heard the quiet sorrow of a wilting flower in a concrete planter, its soft rustle a plea for a drop of water. His parents worried about him. They took him to doctors who tested his hearing and always came back with the same result: perfect. He just has an overactive imagination, they'd say, patting his head. His friends found it strange. "What are you listening to, Eli?" "There's nothing there," they would tease, before running off to join the chorus of the city's noise. So Eli learned to keep his secret. He kept the city's whispers to himself, a private conversation between him and the sprawling metropolis he called home. He became its sole confidant, the only one who truly understood its language. One particularly loud Tuesday, the whispers grew urgent. They became sharper, more insistent. Too much, too loud, it hurts. The city seemed to cry. The constant barrage of traffic, the endless construction, the cacophony of a million simultaneous conversations. It was becoming unbearable. The city was overwhelmed, suffocating under the sheer weight of its own sound. Eli felt its distress deep within him, a headache that mirrored the city's own. He tried to tell people, to warn them, but his words were lost, just another drop in the ocean of noise. No one was listening. That night, everything changed. Eli was in his room, trying to block out the overwhelming roar with his pillow. But the whispers had turned into a desperate, frantic scream, breaking. Too fast, it's all breaking. Eli felt a tremor run through the floorboards. It wasn't an earthquake, not in the traditional sense. It was something deeper, something structural. The very foundation of the city was groaning, threatening to shatter. He rushed to his window and looked out at the familiar skyline. The city lights flickered erratically, not like tired eyes anymore, but like a system in total failure. Then, from the very heart of downtown, where the noise was the loudest, something began to rise. A colossal figure forged from twisted steel, shattered glass, and coalescing shadows pulled itself from the streets. It was a giant, its form shifting and unstable, its body absorbing the city lights around it, creating a growing void of darkness. This was the Sound Eater. With each thunderous step it took, a wave of absolute silence radiated outwards. Cars, their alarms blaring a moment before, went completely mute. The vibrant glow of countless screens and billboards vanished, plunging entire blocks into darkness. The constant hum of life, the voices, the music, the arguments, all of it was swallowed, consumed by the creature. Silence, a true and terrifying silence, fell over the city for the first time in its history. Panic erupted. People poured into the streets, their mouths open in silent screams. They tried to call loved ones, but their phones were dead, dark rectangles of glass. The world had gone quiet, and it was the most frightening thing anyone had ever experienced. But amidst the chaos, Eli stood perfectly still by his window. He wasn't afraid, because as the noise of the world vanished, something incredible happened. For the first time, he could hear everything, not just the city's whispers, but the very essence of sound itself. The silence wasn't empty. It was filled with potential, with energy. A brilliant, warm light began to glow around his ears, a visible manifestation of the power that had been awakened within him. A powerful surge of energy, a soft cosmic hum pulsed through his body. In that moment, Eli understood. He could not only hear sound, he could control it. He could feel the terrified, silent heartbeats of the people in the street below. He could sense the frantic, unheard whispers of the wind weaving between the silent buildings. He could feel the deep, resonant hum of the Sound Eater itself. And in that hum, he heard its purpose. It wasn't a monster of destruction. It was the city's immune system, a desperate, last-ditch effort to protect itself from collapsing under the crushing pressure of its own noise. It was trying to heal by creating a void. Eli knew he couldn't fight it. Fighting would only create more noise, more conflict, feeding the very problem he needed to solve. So, he made a choice. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and didn't shout. He didn't scream. He simply listened. He reached out with his newfound sense, not as a weapon, but as a hand offering comfort. He connected with the city, with the people, and with the creature born from their collective noise, and then, gently, he began to turn down the volume. He didn't erase the sounds, he softened them. He found the blaring, aggressive sirens and faded them into a soft, melodic chime. He took the blinding glare of the thousands of advertising screens and dimmed them to a gentle ambient glow. The frantic, hurried pace of the city, the feeling of constant rush, he slowed it down, encouraging a calmer, more deliberate rhythm. He conducted the city's chaos into a symphony. As the sonic landscape of the city began to change, the Sound Eater paused. Its massive, shadowy form stopped its advance. It seemed to listen, to feel the change. The violent, chaotic energy that composed it began to stabilize. The deep, pained hum at its core softened into a sigh of relief. As the city settled into its new, peaceful rhythm, the creature began to dissolve. The twisted steel untangled itself, the shadows receded, and the giant flowed back into the streets, melting away like a mirage, becoming one with the asphalt and concrete it had risen from. The next morning, the sun rose on a city that felt different. People woke up, remembering a strange citywide blackout and an eerie silence. They shrugged it off as a massive power grid failure, but things weren't quite the same. The traffic seemed a little less aggressive. People spoke a little more quietly. The city felt calmer, more breathable. No one knew why, except for one boy. Eli stood at his window, watching the morning light wash over the rooftops. He could still hear the city whispering. But now, the whispers weren't of pain or desperation. They were calm, steady, and filled with a quiet sense of gratitude. The city knew what he had done. It trusted him. He was no longer just a boy who could hear the city. He was its guardian, its conductor, its friend. And as he smiled, he knew his work was just beginning. If you enjoyed this story, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to click that notification bell so you don't miss our next original adventure. Now, it's your turn to help create our universe. We need your ideas for the next hero. Should they have power over light, shadows, time, or nature? Let us know your favorite in the comments below. Your idea might just become the star of our next story. Thanks for watching.